I still remember the night I told her. It wasn't planned. We were sitting on my couch, the one with the ugly plaid blanket my mum gave me when I first moved into my apartment, sipping cheap wine from mismatched mugs because all my actual glasses were still in the dishwasher. The lights were low, the hum of the fridge was louder than the music playing on my phone, and I don't know why, but I felt safe enough to let the words slip out. I told her something I had never told anyone else. Not my parents, not my sister, not even the boy I dated for 3 years and thought I'd marry. She was supposed to be my safe place, my best friend. I remember how her eyes softened when I spoke. She leaned in, touched my hand, and said, "You can always trust me. It's between us forever." Those words felt like a blanket over my shoulders. I believed her. Maybe that's what hurts the most now, that I believed her without hesitation, like a child holding out her hand to cross the street. We'd been friends since freshman year of high school. She knew my favourite songs, the way I hated the sound of pencils squeaking on paper, how I cried every time I watched The Green Mile. She was the one who held my hair back after too many shots of vodka at my cousin's wedding. The one who brought me ice cream when my first real boyfriend broke up with me through a text message. She wasn't just a friend. She was family. That's why I didn't even think twice before sharing the secret that had eaten away at me for years. It wasn't something casual. It was the kind of thing that keeps you awake at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling, your chest tight with shame and fear. I had carried it like a stone in my pocket, heavy and hidden, something I would touch and flinch from, but never show anyone. And that night, maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the loneliness of a rainy Thursday. Maybe it was just that I was tired of being alone with it. I handed that stone to her. She didn't flinch. She didn't laugh. She didn't look at me differently. She just nodded and said, "I get it. I really do." I remember crying. The tears just came like someone had poked a hole in me. And she hugged me so tight, her perfume filling my nose, the warmth of her sweater against my cheek. I thought, this is what it means to have a best friend, to have someone who holds the heaviest part of you without dropping it. For days afterward, I felt lighter. I walked around with this strange new sense of freedom, like I had set down a backpack I didn't even realise I was carrying every single day. I smiled at strangers. I started sleeping better. Every time I saw her, I wanted to hug her again, thank her again, even though she told me not to. "You don't have to thank me. That's what friends are for," she'd said, rolling her eyes like it was obvious. And maybe it should have been obvious, but to me, it was everything. That's why when the betrayal came, it didn't just sting. It shattered something in me I didn't think could break. The first hint that something was wrong came weeks later, in the most ordinary way. I was at work, standing in the break room, waiting for the coffee machine to drip its slow, bitter brew, when one of my co-workers, Jenna, gave me this look. Not the usual small talk smile, but a tilted head, raised eyebrows, like she knew something she shouldn't. She said, "Hey, I didn't know you had gone through that." My stomach dropped. I remember clutching the styrofoam cup so tightly that it bent in my hand. For a second I thought I had misheard her, but then she added, "I mean, that's really heavy." I can't imagine. My heart started pounding so loudly I could barely hear the hum of the machine. I mumbled something, probably incoherent, and rushed back to my desk, my face burning. The secret, my secret, the one I had only ever spoken aloud to my best friend. My throat tightened as I tried to focus on the spreadsheet glowing on my screen, but the numbers blurred. I kept asking myself, how? How did she know? The only answer was a knife twisting in my gut. It had to be her. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe Jenna was mistaken. Maybe she was talking about something else. But deep down, I knew there was no other way. That night, I called her, my best friend, the person who was supposed to guard the deepest part of me like it was her own. I told myself to stay calm, to just ask casually. She picked up on the second ring, her voice bright and cheerful, like she had no idea my world was tilting. We talked about nothing for a few minutes. Her annoying boss, the show she was binge-watching, and then I asked, did you tell anyone what I told you? There was the smallest pause. Barely half a second, but I heard it. That hesitation was louder than any confession. She laughed too quickly. Of course not. You know me better than that. My chest tightened. I wanted to believe her, so badly that it hurt. I told myself I was being paranoid, that Jenna must have overheard something or guessed. But later that week, it happened again. Another co-worker, then a mutual friend at a party who made a comment that sliced right through me, casual but cruel in its accuracy. Each time I felt the walls closing in, the air squeezing out of my lungs. Each time I went home, shut the door and cried until my eyes were swollen. The realization grew inside me like a shadow I couldn't escape. She had told someone, and not just one person. She had told enough people that my secret was starting to spread like a whispering fire. I felt humiliated, stripped bare in front of people who should never have known. Every time my phone buzzed with a message, I flinched, terrified of what they might say. I started dreading going to work, dreading social gatherings, because I didn't know who knew and who didn't. The trust I had placed in her, the safety I had felt, it was gone, replaced by this constant gnawing anxiety that everyone was looking at me differently. And yet, even with all the evidence stacking up, I still clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, she hadn't meant to hurt me. Maybe it had slipped out accidentally, one drunken night, and she regretted it. But as the days passed and the whispers kept finding me, that hope started to crumble, and in its place something darker began to grow. I kept replaying our conversations in my head, searching for clues I might have missed. The way her voice wavered when she promised me it was safe. The quick deflection when I asked if she'd told anyone, even the way she changed the subject a little too fast when I tried to circle back. I wanted to confront her, but every time I imagined it, my chest tightened with fear. What if she denied it again? What if she laughed in my face, or worse, twisted it around to make me seem crazy? So I swallowed it down, day after day, until it started eating me alive. Nights became the hardest. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling fan, turning slowly above me, its shadow flickering across the walls, and I'd feel the weight of the secret pressing back on me. Heavier than before, because now it wasn't even mine alone. It was out there, floating between mouths and ears I couldn't control. I thought about all the times we had shared moments that felt sacred. The road trips blasting Taylor Swift at full volume. The late-night talks in her car parked under a streetlight. The times she covered for me when I was too hungover to face my mum's Sunday brunch. Those memories used to warm me. Now they stung like salt in an open wound, because behind every smile, every laugh, was the knowledge that she had chosen to betray me. I remember one Friday night, we were out with a group at this little dive bar near campus. I could feel the stares, not obvious but lingering, like people were waiting for me to crack. And then one of the guys, drunk and smirking, leaned over and said something that cut me so deeply I felt my knees go weak. He said it like a joke, but it was my secret, twisted and spat out in front of everyone. She laughed. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I can still see her face lit by the neon signs, her eyes glittering with amusement, and I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her shoulders and shake her, demand to know why. Instead, I excused myself, locked myself in the bathroom, and stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror. My mascara was smudged, my lips trembling, and I didn't even recognize the girl looking back at me. I felt stupid, pathetic, forever believing she had my back, forever thinking I could bare my soul and not pay the price. I sat on the toilet lid, hands gripping the sides, fighting the urge to just run out and never look back. But I didn't run. I went back out, plastered a fake smile on my face, and pretended I was fine. That night when I got home, I collapsed on the floor of my bedroom and sobbed until my throat was raw. I realised then that this wasn't just about the secret anymore. It was about trust, about the bond we had built over years. A bond I thought was unbreakable, and how she had smashed it to pieces like it was nothing. And somewhere in the middle of that storm of grief, something colder, sharper began to form. It wasn't just sadness anymore, it was anger. A quiet, burning anger that whispered, "She doesn't get to do this to you," and walk away smiling. The anger grew in ways I didn't expect. It wasn't explosive, not at first. It was quiet, simmering beneath the surface of my daily routine, like an ember that refused to die out. I would be sitting at my desk, at work, typing away, and suddenly remember the sound of her laugh that night in the bar. I would be brushing my teeth, staring at the fogged-up bathroom mirror, and picture her face when she promised me she'd never tell. I started noticing the small things she did differently too. She wasn't as quick to answer my texts. When we hung out, she avoided eye contact during certain conversations, as if afraid I might read the truth in her eyes. And when I looked back, I realised there had been moments, tiny, subtle shifts, where maybe she had already begun to pull away, preparing to use my secret as gossip or currency. I kept telling myself to confront her, to demand answers, but I hesitated. Maybe I was afraid that hearing the truth from her mouth would hurt even more than suspecting it. Maybe I wasn't ready to accept that the person I trusted most had chosen to betray me. The worst part was pretending everything was fine. I had to sit across from her during brunch with our friends, smile when she teased me about my bad cooking, laugh at her stories, all while inside I was breaking. It felt like acting in a play I hadn't auditioned for, a role where I was required to keep my pain hidden so no one else would see how badly I'd been hurt. And yet, even as I played my part, I was plotting. At night, lying in bed with the glow of my phone screen on my face, I'd scroll through our old photos, vacations, birthdays, nights out, each one a reminder of what we had been and what we had lost, and each one stoking the fire of revenge I didn't even know I was capable of feeling, because the truth was, I wanted her to feel it too. The humiliation, the betrayal, the sting of realising that the one person you thought would protect you had chosen to hurt you instead. I wasn't proud of those thoughts, but they were there, sharp and insistent. I started writing down the things I wanted to say to her, long paragraphs in the notes app on my phone. Sometimes they were angry rants. Other times they were heartbreaking pleas for her to admit what she'd done. None of them ever got sent, but just the act of writing them made me feel like I was taking back some of the power she had stolen from me. There was one night I dreamed about her. We were back in high school, sitting at the cafeteria with our trays of soggy fries and chocolate milk, and she leaned across the table and whispered my secret loud enough for everyone to hear. The whole cafeteria erupted in laughter, pointing at me, while she sat back and smirked. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart racing, and for a moment I couldn't separate the dream from reality. That's how much space she had taken up in my mind. That's how deeply the betrayal had rooted itself inside me. I knew then that I couldn't keep pretending forever. Something had to give. Either I would confront her and demand the truth, or I would find another way to make her understand what she had done to me. The day I finally decided to face her was colder than I expected. Early spring, the kind of weather where the sun looks warm through the window, but the wind slices right through you when you step outside. I asked her to meet me at our usual coffee shop, the one with the chipped blue tables and the barista who always spelled my name wrong. She showed up late, as usual, her hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing that oversized denim jacket she'd practically lived in since college. She smiled like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't set fire to my life with a few careless words. I sat across from her, hands wrapped tightly around my mug, and tried to steady my breathing. The clatter of cups and the low hum of conversations around us made me feel like we were hidden, but I swear every eye in that place was on me. Finally, I asked, "Why did you tell them?" My voice cracked, softer than I wanted it to be. For a moment, her smile faltered. She blinked, leaned back in her chair, and shook her head. I didn't. The denial was instant, automatic, too automatic. My chest tightened, and I felt the heat rising up my neck. "Don't lie to me," I whispered. "I know people know. There's no other way they could." She sighed, exasperated, like I was accusing her of something ridiculous. "Maybe you're just imagining it. People talk. Maybe someone guessed." I wanted to scream. Instead, I stared at her, searching her face for the girl I used to know. But all I saw was someone who had stopped caring about protecting me. Someone who didn't think my pain mattered as much as keeping her hands clean. That was worse than the betrayal itself. The fact that she couldn't even own it. The silence between us stretched until it felt unbearable. She picked up her phone, scrolling like she had somewhere better to be. My throat burned with unshed tears, but I swallowed them down. I realised right then that she wasn't going to give me the closure I wanted. She wasn't going to apologise or admit what she had done. She was going to keep pretending, and I would be left holding all the broken pieces. I paid for my coffee, stood up, and left her sitting there. The cold wind slapped my face as I walked outside, and for the first time since it all began, I didn't feel like crying. I felt empty. Hollow, yes, but also strangely clear. I knew I couldn't keep begging her for honesty she wasn't willing to give, and somewhere deep down, the ember of anger flared again. Stronger this time, whispering that maybe it was time she learned what betrayal felt like too. After that day in the cafe, something in me shifted. I stopped texting her first. I stopped waiting for her name to pop up on my screen. I unfollowed her on social media, though I didn't block her. I wanted her to notice the silence, to wonder why it felt different when I wasn't there feeding our friendship. At first, she didn't seem to care. She posted pictures with other friends, nights out, laughing with people I barely knew. But every time I saw her face on my feed, smiling like nothing had happened, my chest tightened. It felt like she had stolen something precious from me and was walking around as if she was untouchable. I carried that anger quietly. At work, I did my job, went home, watched shows I barely paid attention to. But late at night, lying in bed, I thought about her, about how easily she had dismissed me, how she had acted like my pain was nothing more than an overreaction. That's when the idea of getting even began to take shape. It wasn't sudden. It started with little fantasies, imagining her being the one whispered about, the one everyone side-eyed with pity or judgment. I thought about how fragile her own secrets were, the ones she had spilled to me over the years. Her messy breakup with that guy from college, the way she cheated on her first serious boyfriend, the lies she told her boss when she skipped work to spend the weekend drunk on the beach. She had trusted me with all of that, just like I had trusted her, and I had never breathed a word, because that's what best friends do, or at least what I thought best friends did. Now, though, the lines felt blurred. Why should I keep protecting her when she had thrown me to the wolves? The thought made my heart race, equal parts fear and excitement. One night, I pulled out my old journals, Pages filled with our memories, conversations, details of things she'd shared when she was vulnerable. Reading them felt like handling live wires, dangerous and buzzing with power. I could destroy her with this, I thought. I could make her feel the same humiliation she made me feel. But then another part of me, the part that still remembered sleepovers and inside jokes and years of sisterhood, whispered, "Do you really want to become like her?" That question haunted me. For days I carried it around, battling between the desire for revenge and the fear of losing the last shred of who I was before all this. Yet every time I thought about her laugh in that bar, about her sitting in that cafe pretending she hadn't betrayed me, the scales tipped closer toward anger. I wasn't sure yet how I would do it, but I knew one thing. I couldn't let her walk away untouched. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. A few weeks later, she invited me to a birthday party she was hosting for one of her new friends. At first, I wasn't going to go. The idea of stepping into her world again, surrounded by people who might already know pieces of my secret, made my skin crawl. But then I thought about what I had written in my journal, about the balance of power, and something inside me hardened. If I was ever going to take back control, I needed to face her, not hide. So I went. The party was loud, the kind where music thumped through the walls and cheap liquor burned your throat. She greeted me with that same bright smile, hugging me like everything was fine, like we hadn't sat in that cafe weeks earlier with my heart breaking while she scrolled through her phone. I smiled back, but inside I was cold. I watched her flit from group to group, laughing, telling stories, soaking up attention like she always did. That's when it hit me. She wasn't worried. She thought she'd gotten away with it, and maybe that was the cruelest part. She didn't see me as a threat, didn't think I'd ever stand up for myself. For most of the night, I stayed quiet, nursing my drink and watching the dynamics play out. But then, in the middle of some conversation, she slipped. She made a comment about another girl at the party, something cruel and cutting that she had no right to say. People laughed nervously, glancing at each other, but I could see the girl's face flush with embarrassment. That was it, the confirmation I needed. She wasn't just careless with me, she was careless with everyone. My hand tightened around my cup as I realised I wasn't the only one she'd hurt. And suddenly, the guilt I'd been carrying about even thinking of revenge started to lift. If she was capable of doing this to anyone, then maybe what I was planning wasn't cruelty. Maybe it was justice. Later in the night, when she went outside to smoke, I followed her. The air was cool, the kind that bites at your skin after hours of being in a crowded, overheated room. She offered me a cigarette even though she knew I didn't smoke, and I almost laughed at how scripted it all felt. We stood there in silence for a while, and I could feel the weight of everything unspoken pressing between us. Finally, I said softly, "You know, people trust you with a lot. Don't you ever worry about what happens if they stop?" She gave me a strange look, then smirked. People always come back to me, that's the thing, no matter what. Her arrogance burned through me, and right then I made my decision. I wasn't going to let her keep walking through life, leaving people in ruins while she smiled like nothing touched her. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache from the party. But my mind was sharper than it had been in weeks. I knew what I wanted to do, though the thought scared me. I wasn't the kind of person who plotted revenge, who held grudges long enough to act on them. At least that's what I used to believe. But betrayal changes you. It strips away the parts of you that are soft and forgiving, leaving behind something harder, something that refuses to be broken twice. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my phone, scrolling through old messages she had sent me, drunken confessions, secrets she had begged me not to share, words she had trusted me with, the same way I had trusted her. My fingers hovered over the screen. heart racing. I could ruin her with a single screenshot. One post, one slip into the right group chat, and her perfect image would crack. I didn't do it that morning. Instead, I closed my phone and went for a long walk around the neighbourhood. The cold air biting my cheeks, my hands shoved deep in my pockets. I thought about all the years of friendship we had built, all the laughter and tears and promises. I thought about her sitting across from me in that cafe, denying everything like I was nothing but a fool. And the more I thought, the more certain I became. She had made her choice when she betrayed me. Now I was making mine. That night, I drafted a message. Not cruel, not embellished, just the truth. A single piece of information she had shared with me in confidence. One that I knew would sting if it reached the wrong ears. My thumb hovered over the send button for a long time. I was shaking, not just with fear, but with adrenaline. And finally, with a deep breath, I pressed send. The message was gone, floating into the world where I couldn't take it back. For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange kind of relief. It wasn't joy, not exactly. It was more like reclaiming a part of myself that she had stolen when she betrayed me. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing. The balance had shifted, and this time, she would be the one wondering who was laughing behind her back. The fallout didn't take long. Within days, I started hearing whispers. Not about me this time. About her. The same way my secret had spread, hers began to slip through conversations, little nods and glances that told me people knew. I didn't have to push it. I didn't have to say another word. Once the truth was out, it moved on its own, carried the same way mine had been. Passed between curious ears and eager mouths. I saw it in her face the first time she realised. We were both at a mutual friend's dinner, sitting across the table with candles flickering between us. Someone made an offhand comment, one that could only have come from the secret I had shared, and I saw her freeze. Her smile faltered, just for a second, but long enough for me to notice. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might shake the glass in my hand, but I kept my face calm, nodding along as though nothing had happened. For the first time since everything began, I felt the weight shift. She was the one carrying it now. She was the one glancing around the room, wondering who knew, who was laughing silently at her expense. Later that night, I watched her excuse herself, phone clutched in her hand, heading to the bathroom with panic etched across her face. I should have felt guilty, maybe even ashamed, but I didn't. I felt justified. I remembered every sleepless night, every moment my chest had tightened with dread, every cruel smirk when someone repeated my secret like a punchline. She had stripped me of my dignity. Now she knew what that felt like. The days that followed were quieter for me. People no longer whispered when I entered the room. If anything, they seemed to look at her differently. She didn't text me. She didn't call. For the first time in years, there was silence between us, and instead of hurting, it felt like a kind of healing. Like I was finally breathing air that wasn't poisoned by her lies. But even in that quiet, I caught myself thinking about her. About how easily things had unravelled between us, about how fragile trust really is. I wondered if she hated me now, if she replayed our moments the way I did, trying to understand how two people who once felt like sisters could turn into enemies. Maybe that was the saddest part, that even in her betrayal, a part of me still missed the friend she used to be. Weeks passed, and the silence between us became permanent. I didn't see her name on my phone anymore. No late-night calls, no funny memes sent at random. It was as if we had both drawn a line in the sand and walked away from it. Still, I would run into her sometimes. At the grocery store, at mutual gatherings, even once at the gym. Each time it was the same. Her eyes would flicker toward me, cold and guarded, before she quickly looked away. The girl who once knew everything about me now acted like a stranger, and I told myself I was fine with that. But deep down, it was complicated. One night, sitting alone in my apartment, I pulled out an old shoebox filled with photos. Us in high school with braces and messy hair. Us at the beach with sunburns and tangled swimsuits. Us dressed up for prom, laughing so hard the picture blurred. Each image was like a punch to the stomach. We had shared so much life together, and now all of it felt tainted. I tried to remind myself of what she had done, how she had humiliated me, how she had stood there laughing while people mocked my deepest pain. But the photos didn't lie. There had been love there once, real friendship, and part of me grieved that loss as much as I hated her betrayal. At work, things slowly returned to normal. The whispers faded, people moved on, and I could finally breathe without feeling the weight of judgment. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, I'd feel that flicker of doubt. Had I gone too far? Was I better now? Or had I simply become what she was? Those questions circled in my head, keeping me awake at night. Yet every time guilt tried to creep in, I reminded myself, she made the first choice. She broke something sacred. I had only shown her what it felt like. Maybe it was cruel, but it was also honest. The truth is, betrayal doesn't just end a friendship, it rewrites it. It takes the foundation you thought was unshakable and reduces it to rubble, and you're left staring at the pieces, deciding whether to try rebuilding or to walk away forever. I knew by then there was no rebuilding. What we had was gone, and as painful as that was, I also knew I would never make the same mistake again. One afternoon, months later, I saw her again by accident. I was walking downtown with a coffee in my hand, heading toward a bookstore, when I spotted her across the street. She wasn't alone. She was with a group of friends I didn't recognize, laughing too loudly, tossing her hair like she always did when she wanted to be noticed. For a moment, I froze. My instinct was to turn around and avoid her altogether, but I didn't. Instead, I kept walking, pretending I hadn't seen her, though my heart was pounding. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the exact moment she spotted me. Her smile faltered, just slightly, and she straightened like she'd been caught doing something wrong. Our eyes met for a second, and there was no warmth there anymore, no recognition of all the years we had shared. Just distance, heavy and cold. It struck me then how final everything had become. There would be no apologies, no late-night conversations to patch things up, no forgiveness. We were strangers now, carrying too much history to ever go back. That realization made me ache, but it also made me stronger, because in that moment I understood something I hadn't before. Some endings aren't meant to be fixed. Some betrayals carve such deep scars that trying to heal them would only make the wound bleed again. That night, I sat in my apartment with the lights off, sipping tea, and thought about who I was before all this happened. Naive, trusting, always believing that loyalty was forever. And who I was now, cautious, yes, maybe even hardened, but wiser. I had learned that not everyone who claims to love you will protect you. Some people will use your trust as a weapon the moment it benefits them. It was a painful lesson, one I wished I hadn't had to learn. But it was mine now, carved into me like stone. And though it hurt, it also freed me, because I knew I'd never hand someone that kind of power over me again. Looking back now, I sometimes wonder if revenge really healed me, or if it just gave me a sense of control in a situation where I had felt powerless. The truth is, it was both. I don't regret what I did, though part of me wishes it hadn't come to that. If she had just owned up to her mistake, if she had apologised instead of denying everything, maybe things would have been different. Maybe we could have salvaged something, even if it wasn't the friendship we once had. But she made her choice, and I made mine. In the end, what I learned was bigger than the two of us. I learned that trust is fragile, more fragile than I ever realized. You can build it for years, layer by layer, like stacking bricks into a wall. And then, with one careless act, one betrayal, it crumbles to dust. I also learned that holding on to anger can eat you alive, but so can pretending you aren't hurt. The only way through was to acknowledge the pain, to face it head on, even if it meant doing something I never thought I was capable of. Do I miss her? Sometimes. When I hear an old song we used to sing in the car. When I drive past places we used to haunt. When I stumble across a memory on my phone from years ago. There's a hollow ache where she used to be, and I don't think it will ever fully go away. But missing her doesn't mean I want her back. It just means I'm human. These days, I'm more careful about who I open up to. I don't spill my heart to anyone who smiles the right way or says the right words. I've learned to listen, to watch, to wait before handing someone my trust. And maybe that makes me guarded, maybe even harder to reach, but it also makes me stronger. My deepest secret is no longer the weight it once was. Yes, it was weaponized against me. But in surviving that betrayal, I learned I could survive almost anything. And if she ever thinks of me, if she ever remembers the girl who once trusted her with everything, I hope she realizes what she lost. Because I may have lost a friend, but she lost someone who would have loved and protected her for life. And that, in the end, is a much greater loss.